Hello and welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me again for another night of Facebook Live. I also want to take the time out to recognize those that catch the replay from YouTube and or SoundCloud. It is indeed a blessing to be here with you tonight. I am your host, Tricia Bray Smith, author, educator, and public speaker. Tonight, we're continuing our series on daddy issues. Tonight, we're continuing our series on daddy issues, and we want to talk tonight from the perspective of why we have these issues, because we know that issues as they relate to our parents can be very common for some of us, and for some of us, we may feel like, we don't have these kind of issues, but we know that as we grow and develop in life, sometimes situations can arise that we may not be aware of where they come from. So tonight, I just want to explore some of these possibilities with you. And as you begin to log on and join in with me, please feel free to like and share this video. Please feel free to like and share this video. And we will get ready to dig in. We will get ready to dig in. So tonight, daddy issues, why do we have these? And as you guys are logging on also, feel free to send me a shout out. Let me know that you're there. Say hello. Ask even questions. So you guys that have questions, feel free to also ask your questions, and hopefully maybe I can give some insight on something that may be of importance to you. So why do we have issues related to our dads? And number one, just thinking about it, I was sitting here going over the video from last night where we had our special guest co-host Cameron Cook, and I was just listening to some of the things that were being said, and also already being familiar with his background and close with the family and things of that nature. It really got me to thinking, not only with his situation, but also with some of the other situations that I know that people have as it relates to their dad. Irma, thanks for joining me, hon. Why do we have these issues? And I believe that a lot of it is that when we look at dads, it stems from our perspectives of what we believe a dad is and or what he is supposed to be. And when he does not live up to that, or when something occurs that distorts that image or that perceived image of what we have, then I think it poses a problem or an issue. We look at our parents as a safety and as a nurture and as a security. And when something comes in to impose upon that, then it causes us to have, that's right, Irma, expectations. Expectations. It causes us to build up this barrier or this defense. And in return, this defense, when we don't find a positive way or a way to pull that down, and a way to look at it for what it really is, and a way to really address the situation, as it sits there, it begins to pull up roots. And as a result of those roots, we grow older. Our dad, as much as we may love them, are still growing and developing, trying to find their way as they're parenting us. And we become older, we become angry, we become bitter, we become malicious, we become vindictive, we become judgmental, we become critical. And all of these are a result of a distorted relationship that is undealt with as it relates back to our dads. So we become this angry young woman or this angry young man, or we become this bitter young woman or this bitter young man. And all we can think about in us is what we don't want to be. We don't want to be that man. We don't want to be that kind of way with our children. We don't want to be that kind of way to our families, whether it be walking out on them or neglectful, whatever that looks like. And because we fail to deal with these issues, and because we fail to get help in processing these issues, these feelings, these emotions over the years begin to harvest, and they begin to grow. And in our minds, they begin to heighten, and they become so great that even if opportunity presents itself for us to make the situation better, or to restore the relationship, or to have an opportunity to forgive, oftentimes, because the bitterness is rooted so deep at this point, we neglect to take that opportunity for what it is. Hey, Tanya, how are you, babe? We neglect that. When we have bitter roots, and when we have roots that begin to manifest in anger and frustration, it's hard to see past the lens of what's staring us right in the face. Hey, Pastor Pitts, how are you, darling? It's hard to see past what's right in front of us. And so this is what I see with so many young men and young women today. Now, we're talking about daddy issues, sure enough, but we moms, we get it too. We get it too, because when a child is bitter, they may seem to hate dad, or they may seem to resent dad, or they may seem to be frustrated in how they look or view or perceive men as a whole, and they want to be different. But what I find is that moms are the ones 95% of the time that are there, and they're the one that's catching the blows, because dad is not around and the frustration is so deep. Oftentimes, mom or the primary caregiver is the one that is catching all the blows from the anger and the resentment built up behind the daddy issues. So it's one thing, but it looks like something else. So why do we have these daddy issues? Well, one thing I think that has been a curse, or has been so common for the male makeup, the male component, the way male process information, and the way the males maneuver through life, is that whereas we women will hone in and dig in and try to make things work, or try to stick it out to see what it's going to be, many times, or oftentimes, we find that the male's way of dealing with things, or the male's way of processing things, is that they remove themselves from the situation as a whole. Not that they wanted to walk out on the child, or not that they're leaving to abandon the child, but oftentimes we know as children, and as a mind or a brain that is not fully developed, and that cannot really fully process information, to a child, what it looks like is that they have done just that. they've abandoned us, they've left us, they didn't love us, they rather go and take care of somebody else's child, or they rather go and have 10 other children and love them, or it looks like something to a child that maybe to us adults it's really not. Maybe as a dad, leaving the family dynamic, or leaving that household, or maybe he was never even in the household. For a lot of us, especially in my situation, my kids' dad, they were not in the household. We weren't in a relationship. So maybe it's two people, young, trying to find themselves and dealing with their own issues. Maybe it's their own issues that is a result of conceiving or conception with the children. So it's so many dynamics of this, but the male's way of dealing with issues and processing the issues was that he'd rather remove himself than to be in a situation to where he'd feel hopeless, or to be in a situation where he had no peace, or to be in a situation where he couldn't be affirmed, or be in a situation to where he could not be his own man and develop and process and not be judged and not be criticized. And we know that as we look at so many of the households today, and so many of our families that are broken, where the dad may be absent, or where maybe even the mom may be absent, or maybe both parents are absent and they're living with extended family, whatever that looks like for you guys, we have these issues because as kids, we can't process all of this. All we know is that we're supposed to have a mom, we're supposed to have a dad. And when we don't have that, then that cycle or that perception in our mind has been distorted, because now our family doesn't look like what an image of a family should be, or what society tells us that a family should be. And so we're angry. We want answers that we don't have. We want answers that dad is not able to give us. We want answers that sometimes mom is not able to give us. And sometimes when she gives us answers, her answers are distorted through her own issues as well. And so instead of providing that child with clarity, and providing that child with healing, and providing that child with the opportunity to really look at the situation the way it is, then we impose, therefore, our frustrations as women, our own daddy issues as women, our own bitterness and anger that we have up on the child. And so now that child further has deeper issues, or a deeper, hey Diane, how are you, hon? Finally have a more misconceived perception of their father. Now, mind you guys, we neglect to realize that many of us, when we give birth to our children, when our children are conceived, we are in the early stages of adulthood. Some of us from teens, some of us from early adulthood, just trying to find our way. And so many of us, when, especially those of us that are not married, that conceive in our singleness and having our own issues, many of us, we're growing and trying to develop and process and find ourselves in the midst of giving birth to our children. So what that looks like to our children is that, yes, there's a perception of safety, nurturing, security, all that we have of our parents, but they can't see that parents are just children themselves, trying to develop and grow. And so they're angry. They become angry with us. They begin to be bitter. They begin to act out. They begin to judge. And it's perfectly normal. We do this. We do this. But for whatever it is, wherever hey Karen, how are you, hon? Wherever your issues stem from, I encourage you tonight, if you are one of those that are listening to this broadcast, whether live or on replay, let's consider why we have these issues. Let's consider why we have daddy issues. Why do we have this? Why is there a bitterness? Why is there a miscommunication? Why is there a break in the family lineage when it comes to our dads? Why are our fathers absent? Why would they rather leave the family than to break these cycles? Why would they rather father a child and leave that household and go and be a father to other children and not us? I mean, these are so many unanswered questions that many children live with today. They're faced with this. And all I want to say is for those of us that have issues as it relates to our dads and trying to understand why we're so angry, why we don't want to be like that man, why we even say we hate that man, why we say we will never forgive him, or forgiveness is just not on our agenda right now. When we're at that point, let us take the time. And I know it's going to be harder for you younger ones than it is for some of us older ones. Let us take time to try to look in his shoes. Let us take time to try to look at it from his perspective and from his shoes. And I know that can be hard. It's going to take a very mature person to really want to do that, to really want to look at it from his perspective, to really want to have that conversation and to sit down with him and really, without being angry and without already going with the attitudes and things like that, to really sit down and understand what it is like to be him. And when we have that opportunity to see it from his perspective or to hear it from his perspective, then maybe we can begin to get some closure. Now, I'm not one of those that say we have to get over it. I'll never tell anybody to get over anything. But what I will say, there are some things in our life we do have to get through. And we have to get through it for our sake. We can let daddy issues linger on from the time now until we take our last breath. But though this is something that we live with, it is certainly not something that I'd want to take a risk and die with. When I die, I want to die empty and free. I want to give everything I have here to live out my purpose and to have joy and peace. I don't want to look at my father and look at my grandfathers and the men in my family lineage and be angry and bitter. All it takes is communication. And as easy as that sounds, as easy as it seems, communication, it is the one most difficult thing that we ever do. Because in our mind, we can't see past the hurt. We can't see past why, or we can't see past the anger, or we can't see past the bitterness, because we've drowned in it for so long. And so what that looks like for a young kid, and again, I'm thinking back on my guest last night, Mr. Cook. I'm thinking back, all he could really process or all he could really hone in is that he wanted something different. He wanted to break that cycle. He didn't want to be that teenage parent with 14 kids. He didn't want to be that young man growing up with without a home or without a family to call his own. He didn't want that. But the very thing that was missing in the midst of all of that was a plan. And this is where so many of us find ourselves. we have these issues and we want to overcome these issues and we want to do better. We don't want to repeat the cycle. But guys, without a plan, we're going nowhere. Without a plan, we're being driven by our anger and by our misconceptions, and we repeat the cycle. And no, it may not be exactly like daddy's was, but it's going to be something. Whether we attract those type of women, or whether we attract those type of men, or whether we have that insecurity that continues to look us in the face every morning as a result of it, or whether we live with this bitterness and allow this bitterness to rule our life and to govern our decisions. So I hope that I am making plenty of sense tonight as I talk to you about why we have these issues. And yes, your issues are valid. I wouldn't dare sit here and tell you that your issues are not valid. They are valid. And your perception is your reality. But all I am saying is that there is hope. There is hope for overcoming it. There's a hope for getting through it. There's a hope for releasing all the pain and the bitterness and the anger and frustration that you feel. Because if you feel it toward dad, I can almost guarantee you're going to feel it toward every other male that you see. Whatever issues we have as it relates to that, we project that onto other people. And so then that begins to affect our relationships. It then continues to affect our family dynamics. It affects how we look at ourselves. We tend to take that in with our own insecurities. So help me know if I'm making sense to you tonight. If you would, go ahead and hit that heart button, hit the like button. Don't forget to share this. Why we have the issues? We have the issues because they are real. Perception of all this is it's real. We have the issues because our perceptions have been distorted due to an action of the male figure we call dad. It's been distorted. How do we overcome it? There comes a time to where if you still have dad around, we have to put our own pride down. We have to be willing to really process what is going on and be willing to have that difficult conversation. We have to be willing to have that difficult conversation. Hear his perspective. Hear his perspective. And understand that as we have these issues, and as the dynamics of our family has evolved over the years, oftentimes he was broken. He was abandoned. He was under the curse. He didn't know how to be dad. He didn't know how to process issues. He didn't know how to be a dad or be that provider. Or maybe he wasn't allowed to by some of us women. And maybe he did the best he could. But the only way that we know that is to have that conversation. I wouldn't let another minute or another day or another hour go by if I had these issues to be able to reach out. And if not only for clarity, but just for my own sake, in my own attempt to achieve freedom, in my own attempt to release all the anger and the bitterness and the betrayal that I feel, so that my issues as it relates to dad no longer gets to make another decision for me. no longer gets to wake up with me every day taunting me because I feel like that I'm not good enough, or that I feel like I let daddy down, and as a result of that, he hurt me. Whatever our situations are, guys, there is hope. There is hope. And for those of us with the daddy issues, and maybe dad's going on, maybe dad's going on, he's closed his eyes in death, and we don't get to hear those words. And I know that that is real pain, and I know that that is real hurt for you because you never got the closure that you needed. You never got to hear those words of him saying he's sorry, or for him getting to explain why it was he was like he was, or why he abandoned the family, or why he abused you, or why he abused mom, whatever our issues stem from. And we don't get to hear that. My hope for you is that you'll find somebody that you can speak with and that you can trust and that you can begin to share. And as you begin that process, that you also take the time out to really think about it and consider what his perspective may have been. And when you can see it from his shoes, when you can see it from his stance, and when you can see it from where he was in his stage of development and where he was at that point in life, and the dynamics of what his life was or has been, then I hope that you can begin the healing process of for yourself to get through whatever those issues are and begin to break the cycles so that we won't go another 2, 3, 4 generations of our culture and our children dealing with daddy issues. The answer is in our communication. The answer is in our communication. And we have to do that being non-judgmental, being non-critical, not being angry, not being frustrated, not being bitter, but really wanting and desiring this healing in this area. So I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. I do hope that this topic on why we have these issues as it relates to our dads has been helpful for you. I appreciate you joining me and tuning in. Also, for you guys that may miss some of our broadcasts and you can't be here every night at 10 p.m., I put the link to our YouTube channel here in the comment section. Please feel free to click on it and log in and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This video and all videos that I've done in the past have been uploaded for you to go back and view. Also, for those of you who have yet to get your ticket for the Worthy of Abundance Summit, I will be speaking in that summit August 5th at 1:00 p.m. Central Time. I would appreciate your support. So I put the link there for you to get your ticket for those that have not been able to get their ticket but would like to support me in that platform. Also, the link to my website is there. Feel free to go to my website to look at any resources, books, or upcoming events that I have. That website is there for you and it's updated pretty regularly. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Also, leave your questions, comments in the comment section. I'll be sure to get with you. I am your host, Antricia Bray-Smith, author, educator, and public speaker. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Good night, everybody.